What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. A while ago, I did the best gym redesigns in Pokémon, which, if I may say so, is a rather unique topic. But ever since, it did make me wonder which gym makeovers would be considered the worst. Now again, we will only be considering actual changes to the gym's layout, not counting any new gym remake reskins. So, here are the top 6 worst gym redesigns in Pokémon. Number 6. Balestone Gym. I've put this one on the bottom because it could go either way depending on who you ask, but to me, the Balestone Gym got a little bit worse. Balestone City itself was pretty cool, so I was excited to see what the gym might be, and when I entered I was perplexed to say the least. It's a fighting type gym, so I kind of expected the small arena-style combat zones, but while the puzzle of giant sliding Tetris pieces might not fit the type theme necessarily, I did enjoy it. They were big wooden panels that you would push across the floor to open up new paths between the trainers, that you could also easily avoid if you wanted to. And I'll admit it, this one took me quite a bit of time to figure out, especially back in my youth. But once I did, it was so satisfying, even if I do personally find the leader a bit lacking. Cut to Platinum version, and the gym is completely different. This time, it's some kind of boxing club that's far more modern, and honestly, that aesthetic took me out of the game a bit, compared to the more traditional vibe from the previous gym, even if it didn't make as much sense. Despite the fact that this gym is new, it looks completely run down with giant holes in the floor. But the whole point of this new puzzle is that you nudge punching bags down a wire and they crash into a pile of tires. I guess that's marginally more fighting related, but the speed at which these punching bags swing is at a Magcargo's pace. It takes forever, and a lot of them go all the way across the room. It's one thing if it takes me a while because I'm figuring out a brain teaser, but if I'm just getting bored waiting for this downgraded, less challenging puzzle to finish itself, then you've made your gym a bit worse. Number 5. Viridian Gym. Spoiler alerts for a 20-year-old plot twist, but I really like how it turns out that the final gym leader was in charge of the evil Team Rocket that you've already faced multiple times. That part of the first Viridian Gym was pretty cool, but fast forward a bit to the Gen 2 games, and we see the Viridian Gym yet again, now under the control of your rival from last time. But looking at the layout, something happened. It's not like the original was a masterpiece. It was really just kind of another Team Rocket base with the spin tiles littered about, but afterwards they just turned it into a straight line? We already had that in the same game with Alola Gym. There's no puzzle or anything. It's just a glorified hallway. So obviously they ran out of ideas, but after a reset in Gen 3, the remakes of the Gold and Silver games had them severely overcorrecting. Now the gym still has its longer shape, but almost the entire floor is now covered in spin tiles, turning it into an irritating maze where if you make one wrong move, it'll cost you a good minute and a half of spinning just to get back to the same spot to try it again. Even Team Rocket would look at the abundance of spin tiles in this gym and wince. It's very telling when your gym is better under the control of a criminal organization, because the redesigns for Viridian Gym are either a complete letdown or flat out infuriating to try and get out of. Number 4. Nakreen Gym. As far as gyms go, Nakreen Cities is actually pretty good. It's a secret room under a library in the back of a museum. That's an amazing setup, even if it doesn't sound like they actually want people to try and find it. But I do love museums, and I've always appreciated libraries. And while the puzzle itself might be slightly lackluster, I admire Lenora and the citizens of Nakreen City for promoting education and learning as much as battling. But that wasn't meant to last. While the museum stayed 2 years later, it was no longer the gym in Nakreen City. In fact, there was no gym in Nakreen City at all. In Black and White 2, the normal type gym leader and the basic badge had moved over to the other side of the region to Aspertia City, which is some kind of secondary starting town. But what's very out of character for a starting town is the fact that they have a gym, which is now run by your rival from last time. Sounds kind of familiar. But going into the gym itself, it's really pretty boring. You just walk up to a couple of trainers and fight. It's basically just another line. I do appreciate the actual battlefield setup, like in the anime, but if the way the ground appears is my highest compliment, it's not looking great. That's not even to mention the enraging battle against the gym leader itself, by him constantly using workup. And they stuffed it in the back of a trainer school? I know I just praised the learning emphasis from Nacrene City, but you think about the difference between learning at a field trip to a museum versus another boring day of sitting in classes. It's not the same. And that letdown feeling of monotony and dullness is exactly what I feel when I visit this normal type gym's redesign. Number 3. Dewford Gym. If you've been keeping track, you'll know that I'm not a fan of this rinky-dink town in the first place, but looking back at the gym makes it even worse. I will say that I actually didn't mind the gym the first go-around. You basically just wander through some hallways with limited eyesight while trainers lie in wait around the corner. Once you beat them, you can see a little bit more of what's around you, like an incremental use of Flash, which thematically fits with the nearby cave where you use Flash as well. Overall, not that hard, but still kinda unique. And then in Emerald, the gimmick was still the same, but for some reason they did redo the inside and made the maze look pretty different and even a little bit harder to navigate, which to me made it even better. Then years later, we come to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and after being wowed by the first gym in Rustboro, I was even more disappointed by the changes to Dewford. Firstly, they took the gym title quite literally by moving in a bunch of exercise equipment. But the problem is that they took the darkness aspect and remixed it in a terribly misguided fashion. You now temporarily illuminate the side sections in order to mentally map them, and then are forced to stumble through the dark to get to the next trainer. Is this place shut down or something? Why can we not have the power in the side rooms? Especially since these rooms are where all of the workout equipment is actually located. Do not use a treadmill in the dark, kids. Trust me. Can't we just put a barrel on one of these floor buttons and light it up, maybe? And for no reason whatsoever, there are constantly running conveyor belts in the floor that make you go through the side sections again if you go back at all. It's just a completely separate ballpark for me from being able to see a tiny bit around you versus turning it into a mini Ecruteak gym where it's not even a puzzle. It's just straight memorization. That's not fun. That's homework. Dewford taking a perfectly fine gym and changing it to force me to devote precious brain space to this inconsequential, shady maze makes this redesign one of the most unnecessary in my book. Number 2. Mombasa Gym. Mombasa City somehow became my favorite in the Unova region, full of life and potential for battles. But for my money, it also had one of the best gyms. It was a neon theme park indoors. The worst part was waiting for the pods to come around if you missed them, but I suppose waiting in line is true to life in a real amusement park as well. And it was great fun riding them around. Not to mention one of the best gym leaders to me as well. So in Black and White 2, I ran right into that same building, went through all the same rides, fought a bunch of trainers, and reached the end only to find out that it wasn't the gym? I guess I could have read the sign out front, but where is it? Well, just off to the side is a runway of sorts, and apparently just because the leader is a model and hangs out there, that also makes it a gym. You just walk in a long, straight line. By Gen 5, how could they still think that was a good idea? Did they just get tired of being creative for a minute, or was it close to their deadline? It doesn't even seem to have the standard battlefield. It's just such a bummer that the Mombasa City Gym, which used to be a land of wonder and entertainment, has been turned into a hollow shell of its former glory, only leaving a treacherous redesign in its wake. Number 1. Cinnabar Jim. I really liked the Cinnabar Gym the first time I was there. Well, after I was able to get inside, I did not enjoy the doors being locked and having to ransack through several floors of a dilapidated mansion just to find the key. But what I appreciated most about the Cinnabar Gym was that for the first and really only time, it gave you options. You could either fight the trainers like normal to progress through the closed doors, or you could use your knowledge of Pokémon instead by answering a series of trivia questions. This gym rewarded you for your heightened awareness of this fighting monster game and allowed you to completely bypass enemy trainers if you wanted to and didn't need the experience. An interesting divergence of letting trainers progress, even if it wasn't a fire pit like in the anime, but then move over to the next generation 2 years later in Gold and Silver. You come to Cinnabar Island expecting the same old thing, but in that time the volcano erupted and completely covered the island, leaving only a Pokémon Center. Without even knowing what to do, you instinctively move over to the Seafoam Islands and explore, and there you can find Blaine, just standing in an empty room, by himself. There aren't even any other trainers. This is considered a gym? I know the original got destroyed and all, but you could put any effort into it. At least Mombasa still had other trainers, but honestly, they put up more of a fight on the route to get to this new gym than the one guy alone in a tiny room. Luckily, it turns out that they saw the error of their ways in the remakes and added in some extra trainers to fight. And it's not nearly as egregious, but I was not a fan of the way it was restructured in the Let's Go games either. It still had the questions to answer, but this time it was set up as a game show of sorts. But the whole thing is done on stage, completely stationary. You don't get to move, you just scroll through a bunch of text, possibly interspersed with battles. Now you're taking away my autonomy? Being forced into what essentially amounts to an extended cutscene for a gym is not my or anyone else's idea of a good time. This, combined with the utter lack of any kind of a gym in Generation 2, means to me, Cinnabar has got to have the worst redesigns in Pokémon history. So, those are the top 6 worst gym redesigns in Pokémon. What other changes to gyms were a downgrade? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!